Hey, everybody, welcome out to tonight's training webinar. Um, I'm Shade Frey. I'm here with Stephen Swenson, and this is the weekly training we do on all different topics related to tax liens and tax deed investing. And for tonight, we're going to be talking about exit strategies and some case examples. And if you want, Steve, you can kind of introduce yourself and kind of, I guess, expound on that just a little bit.
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, Shade said I'm Steve, and essentially what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about exit strategies, and we're actually going to go over case studies as far as properties that we are actually in the process of going through this process. So when we're going through and talking about each one of these different selling strategies and the holding strategies, each one of these strategies, we're actually going to use a property example that we're currently in the process of going through this process with it. So I think that that's going to help not only as we go through it, get the chance to go through each selling strategy, but also see the type of property that may associate with that type of strategy.
Also, I think it's worth pointing out that as a whole, we want to focus a lot more of our time with training and with coaching and things like that, focused on exit strategies and selling because using the secondary deeds that we've got, and I think people can, if you can get a property, then really the what stands between you and making a lot of money there is basically selling the property. That's the one thing you have to do there in order to have success. And so it's something that we would like to pay greater attention to help people through. And yeah, like Steve said, this is something that we're doing ourselves with different properties that we've invested in. So we're basically just kind of relaying the same things that we do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's kind of really what we're doing with these properties is we're taking these properties through this process in addition to the secondary market. These are just ones that we're doing ourselves, not only to go through that process, but really to hone our strategy so that we can help teach you. As we do all of these different strategies, as we sell property through eBay and we try all of these different ways to market property, is going through that process over and over again is just going to make it that much better in helping you guys be able to do the same. So if we come up across roadblocks or different things as we go through the process, then that obviously is going to be able to translate to you guys. We're going to be able to share that information with you to keep you guys from making any of the mistakes that we may go through or that we've seen throughout. Really, that's kind of really what we in Shade have done is gone through this process ourselves, and then figuring out the best ways to do it. So we've kind of taken a lot of the headache out of this process by our experience over the last 20 years.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of what that is really meant to do too is help people understand that there's not really a right way. There's not one right way of doing any of this stuff. It's all subjective. So when it comes to something like selling property, I mean, there are so many different ways that you can do that now, and the ways are only increasing. And so I think what's important that we can show and demonstrate is how different methods work, for us, and also just to make you aware of some of the methods or strategies that are out there because there may be one of these that would work much better for you than maybe than other ones based on your personal habits or things that you're into or you enjoy or things that you're good at. So, we basically just try to give an idea of what's out there and what you can do, and so that you can decide which one of those you want to try first.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's a good point. And really, what these selling and holding strategies are these are just some of the basic ways to sell. There's other ways, and if you can think of other ways or a combination of a couple of them, just like Shade said, this isn't necessarily something that you need to do just one strategy, or you may pick a certain type of strategy you like, or the strategy may change depending on the property. So for some properties, it may make more sense to try selling it to the neighbor or to somebody within that area. And then another property, it may make sense to list it with a realtor. And another property, it makes sense to to do it in an online auction. And so that's what's so cool about tax deed investing, or at least the acquiring part through the tax sale investing, acquiring property that through usually deeds, but even in the case of liens, you know, is that there's lots of different methods that are available, and we can use one of these methods or we can use a combination of them.
Yeah, in fact, what we're looking at here are the essentially different methods that you can use for selling property and some different methods you can use for holding property, more long term, or uh, ways that you can monetize a property while you're holding on to it, essentially, because that may be a better option with some properties. And so, really, it kind of leads us to the question is, knowing whether or not you should sell or hold properties, I think, would come up first. But let's just quickly discuss these. I'm sure we're going to go into each one of these in detail, right? So,
Yeah.
so basically we're going to be talking. In fact, yeah, we'll go through each one of these here. I think we've got a key slide on. So, um, the first question, though, I think you have to ask yourself is, when it comes to a specific property, should you be looking to sell the property or hold it? And maybe the question is, what is it that distinguishes between properties that you should sell versus properties that you should hold?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it makes a great point. Essentially, what we'll do is we're going to go through and talk about each one of these different strategies, and we actually have properties associated with each one of them as well. And so, that's really kind of the question. Is you're looking at property, even as before you buy the property, that's something you're going to be thinking about. What are some of the different selling or strategies that I'd like to use in offering this property for sale, and so we'll go through and talk about each one of them. And as you're looking at different pieces of real estate, you're going to be thinking about that before you even really invest into the property.
Yeah, I think that those are all good points too. And I think also when you're looking at the idea of whether or not to sell or hold property, a lot of times it comes down to your personal situation and your investment funds, where you're at with things. Because if you have flexibility when it comes to the finances, then there are probably different properties that you wouldn't mind hanging on to for a little bit longer versus properties you want to sell immediately, or sell essentially as quickly as you can. And so I think that's just another factor that kind of plays into it. But like Steve was saying here, I'll let you go ahead and cover the difference. I guess you can start off here with the selling strategies here. This one.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, really the first one is the for sale sign. And so that's going to be really the first thing you're going to do. Now, this is really going to be if the property has any type of traffic next to it. So, I mean, if the property is on a dirt road and you're not going to have a ton of people, then you may not need a for sale sign. But usually, in most of the properties, you're going to have some type of traffic, and so that's going to be one of the best ways to get people, to get leads, to get people interested in the property, because people that drive by the property many times are people that are going to know somebody or maybe themselves be interested in purchasing the property. So when it comes to doing the for sale sign, it's really just something that's going to be beneficial. It's going to really kind of be that first step. So it's not necessarily something you have to do, but it's something we recommend doing. Now, not all of us are able to live in the area where we're purchasing property. In fact, a lot of us are going to be purchasing property outside of where we live. So in those type of scenario, we're going to actually need to hire somebody to put the sign up for us. Now, a couple things we can do is we can contact a handyman or a service, some type of service or handyman. We can also put in the ad in the local Craigslist. But essentially, what we're going to want to do is send out a sign and have them put it in the property and essentially take a picture and send it to us as well. And what that sign is going to do is it's going to start automatically bringing in calls. So if somebody has an interest in the property, they're going to go ahead and call the phone number. They're going to contact you, and you're going to be able to offer them the property. Now, the first property that we're going to be doing this is case example number one. This is a great building lot that me and Shade purchased. Now, not all the properties that we're able to get at these type of prices. Really, we're kind of cherry picking because we want to show you the type of opportunities that are out there. But essentially, this is a fully developed home lot. So you can see kind of some of the homes in the background. You can see kind of the home on the side. This is a fully developed building lot. It has an assessed value of 12 grand and it has a market value of about 20,000. Now, with this particular property, we probably it's actually that asking price is going to be anywhere between 6,700 to about 7,500. We're going to essentially offer it for about 50% of the market. Now, what that does for us is it also gives us quite a bit of flexibility. But you can see this property, we purchased for essentially 520 bucks. So, we were able to purchase this lot in a particular auction, and the auction ended up doing pretty good for us. And you can see just by the results of this property.
There was also a suggestion by Dawn was saying that that you can hire someone from a website. She was saying Fiverr.com, but I'm going to see if I can figure out. I tried going to the website, but it didn't actually pull up here for me, so I might have it recorded a little bit wrong here. But there are oh, there we go. Maybe it's that www first here. Let's see. It's not pulling up here. Anyhow, new service websites are popping up all the time for things. New types of services that are available. So there may be something like that that's out there now that would make it even easier to find people to do the work, like putting the signs in.
Yeah, yeah, and if any of our members know of anything like that, let us know because that's only information that we'd love to share to the members and even for ourselves, and so we really appreciate that. But overall, we're going to go ahead and put a for sale sign up in the front yard, and people within that neighborhood are going to see this for sale sign, and it's actually one of the few lots that are for sale within this particular subdivision. And we're going to start receiving calls from this. And so once we receive those calls, we're going to be able to determine, exactly how serious they are and possibly sell them a property. One thing also to think about when you receive any type of phone call, if you have other real estate within that same area, even though that property that you're offering may not be right, you can at least let them know about some of the other properties. That was something I did as a real estate agent years ago is, if I had a property for sale, oh, well, let me tell you about this property and find out if they had some other type of property that I may be able to offer them as well, because anyone coming in is essentially going to be a lead for you or a potential buyer.
Yeah, I think that it's good to get that kind of exposure. Um, Also just something for people to recognize and notice is when it comes to us selling the property, one thing that's important, I think, to keep in mind is that you are essentially the wholesaler. Again, it's important to remember your position with that because let's say a property like this might have a full market value of 20,000, but the reason why we're going to ask so little out of it is because first off, we want to be able to move the property quickly. Second off, it's a tax deed, and so if somebody wants to turn it into a warranty deed, they're still going to have to take it through the quiet title. And so we're offering a discount on that because we've essentially bought it wholesale. Okay, and so like we have listed here, an asking price of $6,700 would be a bargain on a property like this if other properties like this are selling for 20,000. You can imagine how quickly properties like this will sell if the property is in demand. And something else I just wanted to say too, when it came to sending people out or putting up a sign in front of these places, the majority of the properties that we tend to target are in places where a for sale sign would be really handy. In other words, if you're looking at a building lot in a neighborhood, that's probably a good place to have a for sale sign. If you're looking at let's say a larger tract of land off of off some kind of a highway or road, it may be a good idea to get a for sale sign up there. It does quite a bit for local buyers. For local buyers, a for sale sign sometimes is what they use the most. For those people that are local to the area, and sometimes those are the most likely to buy as well, are the people that are local. So I don't think you can. I don't think you can put too much emphasis on how important it is to get something like a sign up there in the area so that people know it's for sale and they have a person to contact, to ask about it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And the local also is going to know what that property is worth. So, when you essentially when we talk to them and say, hey, we're looking for $6,000 for it, they're going to know, hey, that building lot is worth, 15, 20 grand. And even if the we don't essentially have a quiet title, this property is clean. There's no liens, there's nothing against this property. So essentially, they could go through the quiet title process and you're not going to have a huge problem because this property has been on the books for a long time. That's the reason we were able to get it for such a cheap price, is because essentially this property has been on the books for 5 to 10 years before it was actually purchased through an additional over-the-counter type sale.
Excellent. Oh, and also, yeah, I think the website that Donna was mentioning is Fiverr. Like the number five if you were to spell it out, FIVE, and then it's an RR at the end, so it's 5RR, basically Fiverr with two R's.com. And I'm actually just kind of looking at it and playing around with it right now, but it looks like
Oh
it's a
yeah.
type of website, that's designed to put private contractors in contact with people, which that could be something like that. Might be exactly what you need.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is actually something we've looked at doing for some different type of videos, small videos and advertisements, essentially for some of the websites. So that's actually something to look at. That's something we can definitely look into, and it may be a great resource to use.
Don also mentioned the bigger pockets also has a group that of investors that basically buy and sell within the group. So there's also different investment groups like that you can join and become a part of. You become a part of like-minded people that think the same way you do. They're people that are looking for real estate. In fact, groups like that would be a good thing to be a part of as you pick this real estate up, because I think that there are lots of people out there that um, want to buy property but don't necessarily know how, or don't necessarily know how to find a good deal on property. And so the kinds of deals you'll be able to throw to them will be much better than anything else I think that they'll be able to find anywhere. And so,
Yeah,
it's a good idea yeah, it's a good
I think
idea to join those groups.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. In fact, really, that kind of goes underneath one of our strategies, social media, because that's kind of what that bigger pockets is it's a large social media platform for real estate investors. And so, getting on there and talking with other investors, just like Donna said, is going to be something that's going to be huge and beneficial for you, like Shade said as well.
Another good way that you can contact people is actually just through traditional mail. It seems somewhat slow, or it seems somewhat old-fashioned, but it works. And the idea behind it is to use the mailing system to contact people that are local in the area. Let's say neighbors. It's a great way to contact neighboring properties to let them know that you have a property that's listed for sale. And one of the ways you can do that, I guess depending on which county you're looking at, but uh, whenever you're looking at a county, a property, you can always identify the properties around it. And using county records, you can actually identify who the property owner is at the time, as well as what the physical address is for the property, so that you mail them out. But I would say, you mail out, it doesn't have to be a large number. Maybe you mail out to 5 or 10 different neighbors, in the area, letting them know, and you could very well get a response. Oftentimes the people that are living closest to that property may be the ones most interested uh, in in buying it. And so in that case, mail is not a bad idea at all, because it gives you a very non-intrusive way to contact them and to present them with an offer. And they may be very interested in buying that property. They just simply didn't know it was for sale, which also goes along with that first idea of the sign, but then contacting the people directly. And it's not a bad idea to offer the neighbors maybe a little bit better deal, something like that. In other words, I don't think anybody wants to get gouged when it comes to selling property. And so if you keep that in mind when you're dealing with people, if you're willing to sell the property at a discounted rate, I think most of the time I don't think anybody's going to feel gouged at all. I think you can actually have a pretty good overall transaction when you buy properties at this kind of a price.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. In fact, like Shade said, many times the neighbors may be the person that's most interested in the property. And that's kind of what we have here in this case example. You know, this is a 1.5 acre lot with a structure. Now, because of how quickly this auction came up and how short we heard about it, you know, we didn't get a chance to actually see what the structure was physically. We weren't able to inspect it, but we paid $320 for it, so we're not that worried as far as what the structure is. From a picture of 2017, we can still see that the roof looked good, but essentially you can see this is a lot, you know, a long lot. You can see it's right next to a lake. It's valued about 7,500. It's worth about 10, and you know, we'll probably offer 4 or 5. Generally, that's kind of where we'll start, as about 50% of the market on properties like this one. But you know, overall, we're looking at a pretty good property here, and you can see that the neighbors on either side, like Shay talked about, are going to most likely be the ones who would like to purchase this property. And so, in not gouging them, giving them a deal, they're more likely going to pay for the property, give you cash for it, and you're essentially going to move it. So even if you only sold it for $2,000 or 2,500 or 3 grand, you're only paying 300, $400. It's not really that big of a deal to turn around and sell it if you're making you know, double, triple, quadruple the amount of money that you invested into it.
Yeah, I think that this will be an interesting property. You know, we still have more we want to learn about it, but as you can see, what we generally try to do, I mean, it's really all about the price that you pay, is I think what we think about it in the end of you know, at the end of the day. It's all about the price. And so if we can pick up a property for a low enough price, you know, if the numbers make sense, then we feel okay moving forward with it. And so you can see on a deal like this, you know, with a property that we think is worth roughly 7 to 10,000, paying a small amount like $320 is there's little to no risk in it, because well, essentially all we're really risking essentially is $320. But you know, really what we have to gain here is potential of you know, quite a bit more.
Oh, absolutely. And probably just send, I mean, you know, I think there's probably a pretty good chance in just sending out a letter. We just got the deeds coming in now to the next property owner, to, you know, to the property owners on either side, and having a good chance of selling the property just to them.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. You know, in fact, we're in the process right now of putting some of these things together here. And so, you know, I think we'll probably offer some of these properties to some of the neighbors. Properties like that where it would make a lot of sense for a neighbor or a local there to buy it. And then we have other properties where you know, I think they might have more appeal to everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. You know, the next one's going to be social media websites, and really social media websites, just like we talked about a little earlier, something like Bigger Pockets. You know, that's just a type of social media website. They're going to be a great way to offer your properties online. I mean, first of all, they're free. You can create a Facebook page, a Twitter account, YouTube page. You know, it's really going to be a way that you're going to be able to offer your property. You know, to large groups of people and be parts of different groups and forums and offer your properties available to different people. And it's usually not going to cost any money. Most of these type of services are going to be free.
you know, also Facebook groups. You know, there are a lot of Facebook groups and different social media groups. Like we kind of mentioned it before about Bigger Pockets group, but specifically within Facebook, there are groups that specialize in real estate in certain regions and areas. And so it's a good idea to get in contact with some of those groups, because in many of those groups they allow you to post up properties, you know, that are for sale, or that you're currently selling. And so it's a good idea to get involved in those groups, because oftentimes you'll be in the group with somebody like a lot of other realtors and people that are other investors, and so you're basically getting connected with a lot of other like-minded people that are also looking for real estate. And so they can be a great way, I think, to get some exposure with the property. Ultimately, that's what you're after, is exposure. You know, you want to get that property opportunity out there in front of as many people as you can.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And by exposing one property, if you have more than one, in a way you can expose all your properties. Because if the person has an interest in that and it goes to your Facebook page or your YouTube site or your Twitter page or anything like that, they're going to be able to see other investments that are available. Investors are investors. And so even if it's just a quick deal where you're essentially, making a smaller amount but turning it over to another investor, but you're able to you know triple your money, well, that's going to be a good investment in that situation, just to get out and to reinvest if there's other properties that you're interested in. Now, this example right here is a pretty nice lot. It's a 1.6 acre lot next to the church. And Shay, do you kind of want to go over this lot a little bit for us?
Yeah, the lot itself, a lot of times we find lots like this that are very appealing to us. And anytime we find nice lots that are within residential areas that are open, those lots have value. This particular lot we picked up for $520. It's about 1.6 acres. The assessed value on it is about 10,500. The market value is about 12,000 on it. And yeah, we may ask about 7,500 on it here to begin with, but we've got a lot of flexibility on it because, again, we didn't really pay a lot for this property to begin with. And so, but with a property like this, I think with social media, it might be a really good place to get online and to offer it. Also, a property like this that's next to a church in a smaller community like this, we'd probably employ some of the other methods too, as far as contacting the locals, including that church, and maybe getting a sign up in front of the place. Oftentimes we're going to want to employ multiple methods. I think whenever we're selling something, so that we're not uh, basically putting all of our eggs in one basket, so that we're not counting on one thing to work, so that we have lots of things that work. And it's also important to keep in mind the ability to duplicate this process over and over again. That's really what we want, is a process that can be duplicated. And so if it's about working with investors that buy up real estate from you in a process that can be duplicated, that's excellent, because it means that if you can find a buyer that will buy real estate from you, you don't have to go through the process of finding the buyer, then you can just buy property and make money, buy property and make money. And so um, the social media websites, it's interesting, but they are something that have evolved quite a bit over the last 5 years. 10 years ago, I don't even know if they were really there yet. Maybe they were starting about that time, but this is something that's really new. And so it's something that's new and growing all the time. I think that it's a good idea to begin using them, just because it's a powerful resource. In fact, I'm just thinking I probably had several emails in my inbox today from one of the Facebook groups that I'm a part of, with real estate. It seems like it's like in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, because I always get all these emails from about property in the Dallas-Fort Worth area all the time. But it's groups like that, that you want to get involved with, to post properties with, because they'll eat up properties, like this you can pick up for that low of a price.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that was a good point, Shade. I mean, with this being a church, contacting the church, and offering it to them for a discount, maybe 2,500. We only paid 500 bucks for it. So, selling it to the church for 2 grand, even though 2,500, even though that's not a huge amount of money, even though we could make a huge amount of money, we could make more money by sitting on the property. We're selling it to the church, so obviously that's going to have benefit as well. But also, we're just turning that property over quicker so that we can use more money to reinvest. We can use that money to purchase maybe 2 properties that are equivalent to this property, or 3 properties or 4 properties, just by quickly turning around the property. We don't want to get too attached to our property. If we have profit, then we're going to move those properties.
Yeah, I think that the speed of the transaction is a huge point whenever we're looking at sales. The faster the transaction, the lower the overall prices that we'd be willing to go with, because it does so many things to simplify the process. And so a speedy transaction is always beneficial to us. And there are so many resources out there today. I mean, just covering those first 3 resources we've talked about so far, putting a sign up, contacting the locals and social media, you still have a lot of other sources that are out there. But even just those first three would be enough, I think, in the modern day to be able to sell a lot of real estate. But fortunately, there's other sites like these auction sites that you can use as well. You can go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, online auction websites is just an additional tool. It's not necessarily one you have to use, but it is a service out there to move property. Both of these websites are moving a lot of real estate, and so look at any of these different types of auction services. eBay and Bid for Assets are the big ones, but there's actually a number, many different types of different type of auction websites, and so even if the property doesn't sell during the auction, that property is going to be exposed to thousands of different people. So you may be able to have your website there, additional information that the property owner can contact you and get in contact maybe if after the sale or if they didn't bid on the property, and that may be a potential buyer. Really, that's what we're looking for as we're selling properties. We're looking for potential buyers, and any of these resources that can give us a good potential buyer is essentially going to be a good resource.
What's also nice about a lot of these, if you think about them, is that they're the types of things that you can set and forget. You don't necessarily have to constantly monitor. And once you put the work in to get something like a listing put up, it will continually advertise without you doing anything at all. I think it's a way to maximize your effectiveness because you don't have to actively really do anything other than just post the listing. So a lot of
Yeah,
advantages there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And you can one thing that's even crazy about eBay and some of these services is you can actually use them as a way to offer seller financing or to sell a property through seller financing. You'll notice on eBay that some people will be offering properties for sale, and essentially that opening bid or that bid amount, that high bid, that final sales amount is essentially going to be a down payment. And then there's a monthly amount that's going to be paid each month after that until the property is paid for. And so you can just duplicate what's already being done, what's already being successful, put your own property in place, and that's something that even we'll do. We'll look at different examples, even in creating our own ads. Even though we've created ads for over 20 years, we're still going to look at what's current, what is working, because if people are selling property, or if you see somebody has a lot of action on their property, well, that says something about their listing, and trying to emulate or trying to copy that listing as close as possible without copying it is only going to help your listing get that much more attention.
Yeah, I think taking information anywhere you can get it, at this point is a really good idea. And yeah, like Steve said, it's really all about what works. And so that's what we try to focus on. This case example here, this is another property that we picked up for $320. It was assessed to be worth about $6,500. Marking on it of maybe 8,000. And a starting price for us might be 3,900, might be less. What's nice is when you buy for that low of a price, you've got a lot of movement on it. We're really not at any risk at all because if we needed to, I mean, if we actually had to turn around and sell, we could probably turn around and sell it for $500 in a day. In a few hours if we needed to. I think.
Oh
Just because it's
yeah.
such a small amount of money to pay for a property. But what we wanted to earn is a little bit better profit than that for all the work that we put into it. So, I think it climbs up a bit, but you can see that properties like this, um, they still have value. Properties like this, land will always have value, but properties like this that have been cleared and are, considered residential, I think will always have use and value.
Yeah, and that's what would make this property nice to put online. Right here we're just seeing a street view, and before we put it online, we'll have several different on-site pictures taken. But essentially, you're looking at you can see how pretty it is. You can see the trees. Essentially, this is an already cleared lot, and it's actually kind of in a country type area where there's just kind of different types of cabins and farm homes, and it's a little bit more out of the way, but it's a real nice area. And so that would be nice about offering it online is it kind of has a little bit of a recreation feel to it, kind of like a little bit of a cabin feel. And so in offering it online, we could either offer it just selling it straight as is, and as is in transaction, and send them the quick claim deed, or we could also offer it seller financing and start bringing in residual income, which we'll talk about here later on when we talk about holding strategies.
Something else that's worth noting is when you're looking at property, or if you're buying property somewhere and you want to turn around and sell it, one of the best ways you can go about doing that is to pretend for a minute that you're a buyer and that you're looking for stuff, and start to look for real estate in that area so that you can find some of the different ways that it's listed. Okay, what's the easiest way for you to find property if you're looking for property in that area to buy? And then to use some of those resources to post properties for sale. But as an example, a lot of times we'll look up properties that are listed for sale in the same general area as other properties that we're buying, and we'll oftentimes look for uh, all of the land that we can find that's for sale and what its listed prices are and what's currently sold. In a way, you can really use comps in a way with land to get an idea of what properties are worth. But the land itself will always have a real value.
Yeah, and one thing to add is these market values are incredibly low. I mean, really, when you're looking at generally real estate within this area, the assessed values are usually about 50%. So the market values are sometimes double what the assessed value, sometimes even more for the residential properties. So, in looking at this, we're always just trying to be conservative, because if we had paid 1,500, well, then maybe we would need more for the property. But because we paid 500, we have more flexibility. So each property is going to be a little bit different. But the goal, if you're trying to wholesale it, is to get rid of it. And I think that, Shade's comment about doing the ads, that's a great point. I mean, it really kind of ties right into the classifieds, and really the classifieds is going to be another resource for you. Now, there's paid classifieds, but there's also tons of free classifieds like Craigslist and other type of websites. In fact, there's tons of different options and ways out there to find different classified websites that you can use to market and to offer your property for sale. In fact, this is going to be probably one of the first steps that you're going to do, in addition to putting a sign in the yard, is start listing classifieds, or start listing the property for sale in some of the local classified ads.
Yeah, the classified ads are how many of the local buyers will locate stuff to buy, and so it's a good idea to find some of the local resources for things like classified ads. Oftentimes they'll be associated with a sometimes a news channel, or some other type of media group in the area, or maybe a newspaper. If there's a local newspaper, sometimes it's surrounding a local newspaper too, but not always. In some cases, it's just a matter of what is set up beforehand. It might take a little bit of searching, but you can generally find, if you start to look for certain things in an area, if you look for real estate that's for sale in an area, or if you start to look for, oh, it's kind of like, I guess there's lots of used things that you can buy. Um, but if you start to look through some of the options that pop up when you're looking for things that are for sale in an area, you may start to see some of those come up from searches like Craigslist or whatever their particular classified website might be. It's one of the ways that you can go about finding them, but most of them have some kind of a classified service.
Yeah, I mean, Craigslist, everywhere is going to have Craigslist, but in addition to Craigslist, just like Shade said, there's going to be a lot of different avenues out there. Newspapers, as he said, TV stations, radio stations, and then you'll also, of course, have all of the different type of local ads. A lot of times, there'll be at least one or two, or if not more, kind of individual websites set up within that area. They may completely be dedicated to real estate, they may be dedicated to everything, but just by going and typing in the location and classified websites, you should be able to pull up within the first couple of pages any type of classified ad that's going to be available within that area. And so that's just a great way to essentially splash your property for sale all across the area.
Yeah, I think those are definitely good points here. um, Yeah, here's another property here that we picked up for a low price. Again, we're big believers in uh, buying property for very low prices. I mean, I guess everyone would be a believer in that, but we specifically love really cheap property that we can find because there's so little risk involved with them, and it's so easy to be profitable with them. This particular property uh, we bought for $220. Its assessed value is about 5,500. You know, we figure the market on it's about 6,500. And you know, we might open up our ask for 3,000, 3,100, or maybe uh, you know, we could take less than that. What's nice is yeah, paying $220 for it. We've got a lot of flexibility. We could take 2,000 on the property, and it would be a steal for anybody buying it. And at the same time, though, you know, we've upped our money, you know, tenfold. And so, um, you know, that's kind of our objective with a lot of transactions like this. And the local classifieds are always a good place to post things like this. You know, they'll normally have a place for pictures and places you can post a lot of information. And once you've got that information in an electronic format, it doesn't take that long to post it on multiple classified, you know, services. So it's a good idea to post them on more than just one, you know, to get a number of different services that you post through. But you'll
Yeah,
at least want to have the local classified, whatever the local people use for their classified service, you're going to want to try to identify.
yeah, definitely. And even services, some of these real estate services like Zillow and some of the other real estate services like that will also allow you to do an ad on that as well. So you can actually list the property for sale on Zillow and list it that way as well. So that's also an option for you, to look at. But essentially, this is a property we could list on classifieds. We're going to blast on classifieds, and just like Shade said, I mean, we could sell it for a huge discount and still be able to make good money on it. So there's really very little risk in this type of a property. Now, not every property is going to have, going to be $200, but what you're looking for is you're looking for properties that you can get anywhere between 5 to 20, 30 cents on the dollar, depending on the market. Some markets it's worth it to get properties for more than that, but really with these type of properties we're focusing on getting them for these case studies really as cheaply as possible and really kind of documenting that process. Um, the next one is going to really be a real estate agent or realtor. And this is somebody that could be a huge resource for you and really take some of the work, most of the work away from you. So they're going to be the one that's going to be handling, doing the ads, doing the marketing of the property. Now, usually you're going to use an agent on higher value property. So let's say if we were maybe purchasing a home or something like that, we may list it with an agent so that we can essentially get top dollar. An agent's going to cost money, but so is selling it through an auction service. So selling with an agent may be a good strategy. Now you can sell it with an agent either through going through the quiet title process where you're selling and getting top dollar, or you can sell it, many times some agents will be able to sell it as is for you. So essentially they'll be able to list it and market it for you and just sell it as is, where they're just listing the property for you. And that may be the best way to sell it. It may be worth it to offer them a 15% commission to sell the property, so that you have to sit back and really do nothing and have them do all of the work for you. Now, this case example, this is a mobile home with land that we purchased, and it's almost embarrassing to say what we paid for it. We paid $220. Now, the assessed value on this property is about just under 10,000, and the market value, we've put it 30 to 40. Zillow says it's worth 80. Now, we don't think it's worth 80,000, but that shows that there's some significant value in this property. So for us, this property, may be worth it for us to either sell it, go through the quiet title process, and sell the property through a real estate agent where we can maybe get, 60, 70, $80,000 for it. Or we could also look at selling it as is, where maybe we list it for 20 grand, or 15, 20 grand, 30 grand, whatever. That's kind of what the agent could determine for us, and just sell it as is quickly to an investor who will buy the property, or a homeowner, whoever wants to buy it. But essentially, they'll be doing all of the work for us.
Yeah, I think that really with the realtor, it's a long-term relationship that you want to establish with the realtor, and they need to be local to the area that you're going to be working in. In other words, you want to find a realtor that's already selling property in the area that your property is located at, so that they're not going somewhere else. They're basically working right in their same area. But also, it is a long-term relationship that I think you have to kind of cultivate. It's also not nearly as expensive as you might think. If you sell real estate through eBay, it's going to cost you 10%. That's just what eBay charges, is about 10%. At least that's what it seems like it's always been. It's about 10%. That's what I estimate in my mind.
Yeah.
And, so realtors, in many cases would cost less than that. Or if they cost the same, it still is a very easy way to sell, and so it's a good idea, I think, to be able to sell properties through a realtor. Also, if you've got a lot of different property for sale, it's a good idea for the realtor to know what it is, because even if they're not necessarily going to represent you on all of your properties, they may know people that are interested in buying lots or things like that. So it's a good idea for them to know what you have available, because generally their business is all about finding people that are interested in buying real estate, or selling real estate. And so I think it can be really beneficial there, as you're working with realtors.
Shade, I think that's a great point, and that actually made me think of something, is as far as actually putting together a flyer or some information and sending it to real estate agents that have listings in the area, letting them know that you're willing to pay a buyer's commission if they're willing to bring a buyer. So you can say, hey, I'll pay a 5% buyer. I'll pay a 5% commission, or I'll even pay a 10% commission if you can bring me a buyer. And so usually a buyer, let's say that there's the way kind of real estate agents work, or most of us have sold or bought homes, but a real estate agent is going to charge 6%, and 3% goes to the buyer's agent, 3% goes to the seller's agent, and then they may have to split that with their broker as well. So if you offer a 5% commission or a 10% commission to bring you a buyer, well, they may be showing somebody, a home next door, but they can actually make a lot more money by just going down the street and selling you this property. So, that's something that, just while she was talking, kind of made me think about that. That's also an additional strategy that you can use to get real estate agents, where they don't necessarily list the property for you, but you let them know, hey, I'm gonna pay you a good buyer's commission if you can bring me a buyer.
Yeah, I think it's important to look at it from the perspective of the real estate agent, um, because the real estate agent, essentially what they want to avoid is doing work for free, which they end up doing a lot of work for free. Real estate agents do tons of work for free, and that's what they want to avoid. So I think the idea behind that is to let them know up front that that you don't want them to do anything for free, that you want to pay them for everything they do. I think it's a good way to get their attention initially, just because ultimately, though, what you're looking for is somebody that's motivated by money and that's willing to work hard, because uh, you know you're going to have a lot of real estate to sell, and they can make a lot of money with it. Um, if they can just find buyers. In other words, it's worth it to pay 10%. It would be worth it to pay a 20% commission if somebody could sell it at a high enough price. In other words, if they could sell it fast enough and for the right amount, lots of commissions and things would make sense. And so I think if you show that you're open to some of those things, like Steve said, sending out a flyer might be a good idea, or at least contacting several of the realtors with some kind of a form email maybe that you set up and send out to several of them. That basically just states what you're looking to do and what you're looking for, because you're looking for a partner in a way. It's not quite like it's kind of odd, I guess, when you're looking for a real estate agent. You're really looking for somebody out there that can begin to manage the selling side of your real estate, and they do so because they're making money on each one of them. So you're looking for a true partnership, but that's not going to work with everybody. So I think it's a matter of finding the right person, finding the right realtor.
Yeah, and it may make total sense for them. For example, let's say we were asking 20 grand for this property. Well, there might not be very many properties that you can get with a structure on the property for 20 grand. And so letting an agent know, hey, I'm willing to pay you a good commission. And so maybe, if we're offering a 5% or a 6% commission for just bringing a buyer, well, they're going to make twice as much money by bringing a buyer and selling it that way. And so just like Shade said, I think sending, just a short form letter. Hey, here's my property. Here's what I'm willing to do. Here's the amount of commission. Let me know if you've got a buyer. I'm willing to deal. And they might you could sell the property that day. You just never know, because agents are that's who they talk to. They talk to buyers, and so they may be able to put a buyer together before you even know it.
What's also good about that approach, I think, with it is that even if somebody doesn't necessarily, maybe at that time, if they don't want to be your agent or whatever it is, they at least know that you've got property available that you're willing to pay, the agent, to get it sold. Uh, you know, I think there are a lot of advantages to having a lot of agents knowing that, in that area, because if something comes up, like you said, they could very well make quite a bit more money on a small property deal like this than they would maybe on selling an entire house, valued at quite a bit more, just because of the way the system works.
Yeah. Yeah, in that property, if we said 20 grand, even if we said a 10% commission, it'd be worth paying them $2,000 to sell that property quickly and not have to worry about going through any headache.
Yeah, I think in a case like that, it would be well worth it. A 10% commission would make total sense, and a 10% commission for them would be a 10% commission on 20,000 would be like getting oh, it's probably better than they would end up getting on most homes that they sold, I'll bet.
Yeah, they could sell a 60, $70,000 property, and they're going to be splitting 3% with their buy with their broker in most situations. So, yeah, they're going to be making a ton more money, and it's going to be beneficial to them. It's going to be beneficial to the buyer, because they're picking up a property for discount as well, at least in these type of scenarios. So, the next group is essentially holding strategies. Now, when we talk about holding strategy, we don't mean just buy and hold for appreciation. We're essentially talking about ownership, or holding on to the property, either through seller financing, through rentals, through lease options, through some type of lease agreement, or of course for appreciation as well. That is a strategy that can be used, especially when you're buying property for such little amount. It doesn't really hurt to sit on the property if you're paying $50 a year in property taxes and you purchase the property for $500 if it's going up in value. But we'll go through and talk about each one of these different holding strategies as well.
Yeah, like Steve said, I think holding for appreciation isn't necessarily the goal, but what's nice about this strategy is that you can buy these properties at a low enough price that holding for appreciation actually would make financial sense in a lot of cases. But what you have to consider and think about when you're going to just hold for appreciation, meaning that you're basically just hanging on to the property, you're not really doing anything with it except for just holding on to it. Now, if the property has a structure on it, it's actually a very negative thing, because structures tend to do better when there's people, there residing within it. But if it's just land that you're holding on to, it may make a lot of sense to do that, but you have to look at how much your annual costs are for the property. So obviously you're going to have property taxes that are owed annually, and if there's any other fees that are required, then you need to calculate that as well to determine if it makes sense to hang on to this property for for a long duration of time. Either way, you're not going to lose money on it. I think that's for sure. I think that the property taxes in most areas are not that high of an amount to make it where it wouldn't be worth hanging on to it. But I think when it comes to holding for appreciation, the idea is pretty simple, and everybody's done it before. You buy the property, you hang on to it for a set period of time. You can turn around and sell it for, for more because property in that area is going up in value. This is almost more of a side effect or a secondary effect of your investing is that all of the real estate you've purchased also goes up with appreciation as you hold it or as you own it. But yeah, it can also be a primary strategy for people if they're just looking to. There's some people that are just looking to bulk up on property. All they want to do is just own a lot of property, and there are different tax benefits associated with this. And if that's the case, then a buy and hold strategy is essentially what they're pursuing.
Yeah, well, and let's take, for example, let's say we're looking at a $10,000 lot, but it's going up 10% a year. Well, that may be $1,000 a year, and the property taxes may be 30, 50, $100 a month a year. So you actually be making $900 a year on it, and if you only paid 500 or 200 or 300 or 1,000, well, the property almost paid for itself in appreciation within the first year because you paid so little, and each year it's essentially going up in value. So it's not going to work on every property, but some properties it may make sense, especially depending on, like Shade said, depending on the price. So usually, like we mentioned, it's usually going to be for these properties that you purchase for a low amount. Um, here's an example of one that we could possibly hold. This is a 2.4 acre. It's kind of a wooded lot. You can see that it's got roads on, about half of it. And so it looks like it's a pretty nice lot. Yeah, there's homes within the area. But overall, it's a solid wood lot. It's worth about 10 grand, has a market value of about 12, and we'll probably ask around 6,000 for it. But this may be a property that maybe would want to hold on because of the location. It's kind of up in the mountains a bit, and we may be worth holding on to. Not, just for appreciation. It may be something just to hold on to. And so each property you're going to look at a little bit differently. But all of these properties we're able to pick up at a price that if you wanted to, you could probably hold on to appreciation and just see values as those properties go up in each year. But most of us are trying to get rid of them.
Yeah, in fact, if it's good to look at the historical value of the property to get an idea of what the property is doing and how it's trending. I mean, if you have a property in an area that is going up uh, in value quickly, then it may be a good idea to just hang on to it for a while. But if you look and the property values have been somewhat stagnant, or if they're going up a little bit, you also have to account for the cost of inflation, that's going up as well. So if it's not bringing in enough, then it's not a great option to go with. But again, like Steve said, I think most people are really looking to make money on the property and sell it. But ultimately, in between the time, I mean, while you're selling it, you're essentially holding it, during that time while it appreciates in value. And so I think this tends to be a benefit. And yeah, this property below might be a great property for something like that. I think we'd have to see what happens, see how much interest there was in the property. But certainly, if the property, property like this, if we didn't have it sold immediately, it wouldn't be the end of the world because the taxes are going to be pretty low on it, and the property has value that's definitely going to go up. It's definitely not that bad of a thing, I think. I guess what I'm trying to say is, in the past, when people have bought property, oftentimes if you're paying full price for property, then having the property do anything but make money is a problem because you've invested large sums of money into it. The less, the lower the amount that you've invested, I think really the lower your overall risk. And when you're paying as low of a price like this, like $420 for 2.5 acres, you've got all the options in the world open to you at that point because you've paid a low enough price there for it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good point.
Seller financing is something that we've talked about some tonight, but it's something, it's a tool you can use not only to, uh, it's a tool you can use to make properties more attractive and to open up the number of people that might be interested in buying it. Because the fact is, I mean, if you're selling it for X amount of dollars, what you're really looking for is for somebody that has the cash to pay for it outright. Because maybe they'll get a loan for it. Some people might, but with a property like this, probably not. Really, because it's a taxi like this, it's going to have to be a cash transaction. And so, um, with seller financing is a way I think to increase the number of people you could potentially sell the property to. It also enables you to sell the property for a higher amount and to create residual income for a set time period through owner financing. So it may be a really good option for people, especially if you have properties that haven't sold in other ways. You can always offer them with owner financing as a way to get some of those people that may be interested in buying it, but don't have the capital to pay for it outright, all at once. For those people, owner financing is perfect because they don't have to go through the process of getting, traditional financing, and yet they're still able to finance the property. It's not something that's going to show up on their credit report. Uh, and for you as the owner, you're really never at any risk with the property because you don't transfer ownership until the property has been paid for. So as the owner of the property that's offering owner financing, you basically sit back and collect checks. When you sell the property, you can also sell the property with some kind of initial down payment that covers, most likely, it should cover everything you have into the property and then some with just the initial down payment. So it's possible to sell a property like this where you can collect more than what you paid for the property up front, and you can set it up for a monthly payment after that until it's paid off. And if they don't pay it off, then you basically just re-offer it again. You don't really have to do anything because you haven't transferred title yet.
Yeah, and what's nice about seller financing is you can do this with any type of property. It doesn't have to be a structure. It can be land. It could be, a lot. It could really be any type of property. You can offer seller financing because you're essentially just acting like the bank. And like Shade said, essentially, you can ask for that down payment, and that down payment is going to be required and could it pay for the amount that you actually are asking for. You're going to be the one that decides the selling price, the interest rate, the monthly payment amount. And just like Shade said, if the buyer quits paying, no big deal. You're going to keep all the money that they've paid up to that point, and then you're able to just offer the property for sale. Here, this is actually a real good example, case example, because there's a homeowner right next to it that may have a good interest in the property where we could offer this property through seller financing. Shay, do you kind of want to explain this property?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, this property is about 0.45 acres. Again, we didn't pay very much for it. We paid about $220 was the cost on it. It assessed at about 4,500. We estimated the market on it's about 6,000. And the way this property is set up, the property line is literally like right on the edge, like basically right after the driveway. So a good chunk of probably what these people have had as their yard is included in this, and it goes clear out into the field beyond and out to the trees you see kind of out in the distance. It's bigger than you might initially think. And with a property like this, offering owners seller financing, a property like this may be perfect because it enables you to sell the property to somebody like, let's say the property owner here would like to buy the property, but they don't have the cash. Let's say they don't have the ability to buy it at that kind of a price. So you could offer a reduced price on a property like this, and you can offer owner financing. So rather than them needing to come up with, let's say you're selling it to them for $2,500 or $2,000, whatever the amount is, you could sell them the property for something like, let's say $500 down and $100 a month until it was paid off. Which wouldn't take too long. I think they'd be able to do that within a year and a half or so. And so seller financing might be a great option on this property, and it's something that you can offer on a case-by-case basis if it seems like the person may not, if it seems like the person may need it. So in a case like this where you've got the person living right there, we might contact that person directly with the letter. And in the letter, we might offer to sell them the property, and we also might hint at or tell them something about offering owner financing if they're interested in that as well. Because a lot of people will jump at that. It's owner financing is a good opportunity for them, um, just because of the way that it works. It doesn't require a certain credit score. It doesn't require anything like that. It's basically just an agreement between you and the person buying the property. And so, uh, something else also, just before I forget here, one of the questions we had was about the taxes on capital gains when buying and selling tax deed properties. And yes, if you buy and sell a property, so if you go to sell a property and you get a big check at the end, then yeah, you'll want to count that among capital gains, but you're also going to have a lot of write-offs. I think to help offsets that in a lot of ways. But yeah, if you're doing this under a business entity, then you basically treat it just like income. So uh, you know,
And there's different ways you can set it up as well. I mean, that's the great thing is there's so many different corporations and ways you can set it up. I mean, you could do it to kind of like an exchange where you're just essentially taking that money and putting it into another piece of property within a short period of time. And not have to deal with that. So there's different ways around that depending on how you structure it. Also, if you were doing this through some type of self-directed IRA account, all of the money would just go back right into the account. So if you're doing this through some type of a retirement fund, so it's just going to be completely dependent upon how you're structuring the property and essentially how you're selling it, and what systems or company that you've set up to do it. But either way, this is a pretty good lot.
yeah, I was actually going to say the same thing. That as far as self-directed accounts, that's one of the ways you can do this tax-free without having to, without needing to pay capital gains for every transaction. But again, the self-directed accounts are a little bit different in the way they work. That money would basically go right back into the self-directed account that you're using to pay for the stuff as well. And so, um, yeah, different ways you can do it. If you're just treating it like regular business, well, really, the best thing you could probably do about it would be to hire an accountant to kind of tell you and go through it, because your taxes are going to become a little bit more complicated once you start really investing and you've got that many write-offs. It's more than you probably want to take care of yourself. It's more time consuming than you want to do on your own.
Yeah, it's something to once you get into the level where you're selling a ton of property, it's worth it for most of us to have an expert
Well,
handle
and
that.
in terms of advice too on the expense of capital gains, really, I guess it doesn't seem like an additional expense. It just seems like taxes, that like you would normally get if you're getting paid for normal labor. So normal work, if you're getting taxed, I mean, it seems like everybody pays the tax between 20 and 30, 40%, somewhere in that area. And the capital gains tax is kind of the same way. The one advantage I think that you have, or at least the one advantage that we have, um, is the write-offs and the different things that go into the business, because there's really a lot that goes into to making the investment work. So I think in the end, that's one of the things that helps to offset some of the expenses.
Yeah, it's definitely something you want to talk with an expert though, just to make sure so that you're taking advantage of everything you can and doing it the best way to benefit you.
Yeah, there's no point in paying more in taxes than you need to pay, but at the same time, you also don't want to underpay. And the only way you're really going to know that for sure is if you hire a professional that you can submit your records to, and they can go through and tell you exactly where you stand. Real estate rentals are another topic here, another way you can buy and hold real estate and still make money on it. Rentals, I think, are really one of the best ways to build wealth right now, long term, because you're creating residual income, plus you're also earning money as the property increases, as it goes up in value, as it appreciates in value. So, with the income you can make just off of the rentals, you're talking about thousands of dollars every year. And then you also have, a percentage of the overall value that is increasing. It's a way to make money on both ends with the property while you still hold on to it. I love real estate rentals. I think that they're one of the best strategies you can implement right now on properties that it works with. It won't work with every property, but if you have a property where it does work as a rental, rentals are great.
Yeah, definitely. You know, the next one is lease options, and lease option is pretty similar to a rental in a lot of ways, but essentially you're leasing the property with the option to buy. And so essentially what you're doing is you're selling the property, or you're giving the property you're giving the opportunity to the property owner, to the my goodness, essentially really the difference between a lease option and just a rental is essentially you're leasing the property and giving the buyer an option to buy the property at a set price. So it's going to require a down payment. Usually a lease option is going to require a larger down payment than a rental. So for a rental, you just might require the first and last months. But a lease option is going to be similar to seller financing, where you're going to ask for a larger amount down. And so this is usually going to be done with structured properties like like a home or some type of commercial property. You're also going to agree to a set price. So you're going to have that price set in stone, and then each month a portion of their payment is going to go towards their down payment. So, let's say for example, we're selling a home, a mobile home. We have that down payment of $2,000, and then they have a payment of $1,000 each month. Well, 750 may go to just essentially paying the amount, the rental, kind of the rental cost, but 250 of that will be going towards their down payment. And at the end of the lease, the property owner, the buyer has the option to buy the property from you at that set price. So if the property's gone up in value, let's say they paid 30,000 for it, but now it's worth 40, they get to buy it for $30,000, plus they get to put all of those payments, that amount that's gone to those payments, to essentially pay down the property. So that gives the property owner essentially the chance to rent the property, but also that person that leasing is going to be taking on a more of a ownership responsibility. So it allows you to have your hands off a little bit, because usually the leased option, that person is going to be fixing the property. They're essentially going through this process so that they can buy the property. They may not have the credit, or they may need to work out a few things before they're able to buy it. So this allows them to buy a property that they like, uh, lock into a price, and then have some of that payment go towards it before they can get traditional financing or pay the property off.
Yeah, in fact, it's especially appealing if you have property values in the area going up. That's where lease options are very attractive, is because people think, okay, well, if I'm going to live here for the next 3 years, then I can take advantage of the appreciation in value that is going to happen. And rather than just wasting all of my money on rent, I'm going to have a set portion of it that actually goes towards my down payment on this. So at the end of that period of time, be it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, they can walk away if they want to, but they have a certain amount of money invested into it, that makes it a little bit harder for them to walk away, because they can buy it at this set lower price, and they've already got this much money accrued for towards the down payment on it. So it's kind of a way of kind of locking them into the buy of it as well. And this is actually this is the property that we picked up here, the mobile home, for we paid $270 for it. It's assessed at about 9,500. Zillow gives it a value. Is this one Zillow valued at 63,000?
Yeah.
Okay, and we're estimating maybe closer to 25,000. We're looking at that at an asking price there of about maybe 14 to
15.
begin with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
15 to 20. You know, we'll determine that. We're getting somebody to go out there and look at the property. We're just barely getting the deeds on these properties. So, we're still kind of in the early stages of listing them, but each one of these properties, it would be a good case example for essentially the type of method in selling it. The last one is really a land lease, and this can be used to for farming, for fishing, hunting, recreation, camping, boating. Really, just you can rent out the rights to use the property for that specific use. And what this does is that this allows you to hold on to the property and still earn residual income. So if you have a large piece of property that's next to a stream and people like to fish there, you could actually rent that out, or farmland, or any type of camping or recreational land. Really, this is something that you can be creative with, but it gives you the ability to earn income on the property with still having complete ownership, and the lease is only for that specific use. So they can only use that for hunting or for recreation or camping or farming or whatever the use is. Other than that, you have all rights to the property.
You could also use something like a land lease with cases where you have a neighbor that's basically using the property already, like for parking or something like that, and maybe you don't necessarily care if you sell it real quick. You could use kind of a buy and hold strategy by doing a land lease, because what you can do with land lease is make sure that you're at least getting the property taxes covered and you've got some money coming in from the property, so that you're not going negative on it. Maybe you have some kind of an agreement that they keep the weeds, down while they're using the property, and they pay you $200 a year, something like that. It might sound like a small amount, but something like that, an agreement like that, would basically enable you to maintain and keep that property long term if you wanted, because it will go up in value, and things like the weeds are being taken care of in the meantime, and the property taxes are being taken care of in the meantime through a simple land lease agreement. So like Steve said, you can be creative with them and offer them in so many different ways. Like every single property could be a land lease in one way or another if somebody's interested in it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's just really a matter of your creativity. And if, like Shade said, if somebody's using the property, or you could potentially use the property to, maybe they need to park a trailer and, I mean, like a pull-behind trailer, not a live-in trailer, and a motorhome next on a motorhome and a boat on the property, or something like that. It's next to their home. That may be a perfect thing where they don't necessarily you're not necessarily selling them the property, but just like Shade said, you can lease them the next door lot to park their boat and their motorhome on, or something like that.
Yeah, they don't have to be big deals. They can be little deals. I mean, the main thing you're trying to do there is create any kind of income so that you can counterbalance the cost of taxes, on an annual basis, and any other costs, that may come up with the property. So that's really the whole idea behind the land leases, is to find a long-term way to be able to keep the property without having it cost you any money. So yeah, I think with that being said, I think that's pretty much everything we were going to cover here tonight. Um, and So I think if anybody has any additional questions, feel free to send those over to us, and we'll get back to you on the responses here for those. And we'll also let everybody know on property. We're in the process of buying a lot of property right now, and so if you're looking at secondary property, there should be a lot of it available here soon.
Yeah, definitely. You guys have a good week.
Yeah, everybody, we'll see you here next week. Thanks again for joining us.